Hey everyone, my name is Franco. If you're new to the channel, I've been working on a game called Block Miner for 3 years as of a week ago. Yeah, that's a really long time, and making this game has taught me a lot about the creative process in general, which is why I wanted to make a video reflecting on that experience and encourage but also caution any aspiring game developers. I have never felt so rewarded as a creative individual and yet so discontent at the same time. Those feelings really sit at opposite ends, so let me explain why that is. Block Miner is a game I never thought I'd make. It's a Tetris-like game where instead of controlling the falling blocks, you control a character instead to manipulate said blocks. Now, I've played dozens of narrative-driven games, action-adventure games, and survival horror games, but I really can't name too many puzzle arcade games that I've played. So why am I making this game? So just a quick recap for those of you that don't know me. I came from an XNA/mono game background, and after several failed attempts at making a game with those frameworks, I decided to learn the Unreal Engine in the hopes that I would land a job in the game industry. After several months of prototyping and refining my C++ skills, I never got that job, but I somehow landed in the casino industry, and the company that I work for introduced me to the Godot engine. So wanting to become more familiar with Godot, I decided to start working on a small game. That game was Block Miner. The first year of development proved to be a challenge because on top of learning a brand new game engine, I also had to figure out what exactly I was making. How do I make a Tetris-like game with a playable character fun? When I initially did research on this type of game, I honestly came up try, and it wasn't until further in the development where I discovered games like UFO or Unidentified Falling Objects, and just recently Wrecking Crew 98. That probably says a lot about my Googling skills, but whatever. Now, making a game that you haven't seen before nor have played isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you're someone like me that is inexperienced in finishing games and are also making a game in a genre that you don't really have much playtime in, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So because I didn't know what exactly I was making, I had to prototype a lot, and I probably did so over the course of 2 years. The most important thing about prototyping is that you have to remember to make your ideas work first before you can make them work better. Now, I handled this pretty well at the start. I basically took it step by step, just figuring out the mechanics I needed as I went along, but eventually I fell into this pit where I was developing these elaborate and extensible systems that could cover multiple scenarios for things that I didn't even comprehend yet. And worst of all, I was the only one playtesting those prototypes. Being the sole judge of my own work, it was very easy to just dismiss my ideas and then chase after the next one. I honestly can't imagine how much time I would have saved if I just started sharing Block Miner builds like I do now much earlier in development. One of my favorite game dev YouTubers, Randy, actually made a video a couple months ago where he talked about his experience not being able to complete games. He didn't want to confront the fact that he was inexperienced as a game designer, so he just decided to stick to what was comfortable with him, which was just working on tech and improving his engine as much as he could, really in the hopes that the game design part would just sort of work itself out. I related to this a lot because for Block Miner, I was always pushing for the next big feature. You know, I was always telling myself that I need to get one more thing into the game before I could share it with anyone. All I needed to do was just watch somebody play Block Miner. It was that simple. So after many months of being the sole playtester of Block Miner, I eventually landed on this vision for the game. A Tetris-like game where instead of controlling the falling blocks, you control a character to manipulate and match blocks to create chain reactions. So it was at this point that I was actually feeling like I was getting somewhere with Block Miner. What's the worst that can happen? One of the biggest regrets I have while working on Block Miner was deciding to refactor the game before I had a concrete gameplay loop. In other words, I rewrote most of the code without having a playable game yet. Again, going back to Randy's experience, I felt like it was better to improve the tech rather than actually confront the issues with my game design. I started the refact effort back in April of last year, and I probably didn't finish until September or October. Those couple of months of refactoring were honestly brutal, and I lost a lot of motivation, and I also around that time just stopped feeling comfortable sharing my progress on the game. Seeing that my performance was just tanking, I decided to take a break from the game and participated in some game jams, the hopes that, it would help me feel motivated to continue working on BlockMiner. So after all of that, the refactor still kind of worked out in the end. Even though I had lots to figure out, I still felt like the game came together pretty quickly. As awful as the refactor experience was, ultimately I think it was a good thing because it created some distance between me and BlockMiner. I wouldn't have made the Expression series where I made a song every week for 7 weeks, which not only improved my music production skills, but also gave me the courage to do my first open mic, and ever since I've done plenty more. I also got to participate in some game jams and got to collaborate with some pretty awesome people. Shout out to Savannah, Carlin, and Jason. But most importantly, it helped me chill out about working on the game. I would work on this game every morning before going into work, sometimes after work, and I would also work on the game over the weekends. So after doing this for 2.5 years, I didn't really beat myself up about how much work was getting done, and I wasn't afraid to take a step back and pursue some of my other interests. So it's kind of weird to say that, being a James Clear fan, because his teachings are all about embracing habits and being consistent and discipline and all that stuff. I followed that for a long time and definitely made a lot of progress in my life, but I feel like it's time to just tone down that mentality just a little bit. Working on this game hasn't always been so dark and gloomy, so I think it's time to reflect on the positives. So because BlockMiner is the most complex game I have ever made, it really pushed me to develop systems and mechanics that were only familiar to me as a player. At one point during the prototype phase, I wanted to develop a loadout-like system similar to Call of Duty, where the player could equip up to 3 tools or items to help them complete levels. I spent a very long time developing this very flexible loadout-like system, and in the end I realized that I didn't need it at all. The player could already do so much, so I felt like this loadout system was only just pushing me to create filler content. So even though I didn't end up using that system, I learned how to do it. So now if I want to add that system in a survival horror game, which I definitely will make next, then I'll know exactly what to do. Many solo developers have made a significant impact on the game industry, and my most recent favorite example is Billy Basso, creator of Animal Well. Here's a guy that's 100% do-it-yourself. He wrote his own game engine, he made the sounds, music, and art all on his own. He's essentially everything that I strive for as a game developer. There were plenty of times while working on BlockMiner that I felt like I needed some help, but at the same time felt like it was a cop-out if I didn't do everything on my own. Which is kind of funny because ever since the beginning of BlockMiner, I've been sharing my progress with my mentor and friend, Booker. Booker was never hands-on with the game's development, but in a way he kind of was because his influence is in BlockMiner. Having Booker with me to explore all of the different versions of BlockMiner and discuss what worked and what didn't taught me a lot about game design and architecture. But I think the most important thing he helped me out with was giving me the courage to discover a good chunk of this game on my own, and I am forever grateful. Nobody gets to where they are in life alone. Going back to Billy Basso, even though he learned how to write game engines through self-teaching and self-perseverance, it was his experience working at game companies and learning from the Handmade Hero community that helped shape the engine he wrote to ship Animal Well. Another hero of mine, Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails, has had a very successful run of scoring films. He has won a total of 2 Oscars and was unfortunately robbed for a third, RIP Challengers. And even though he could do it all on his own, he didn't. Ever since The Social Network, he's been collaborating with his good friend Atticus Ross. Atticus fills the gaps in Trent's workflows and proved to be such a benefit to Trent's songwriting process that Trent actually made him a full-time member of Nine Inch Nails. So to return to my earlier comment, I wrestled a lot with the idea on bringing someone on board to help me finish Block Miner. I really wanted someone to fill the gaps in my workflow, basically find my version of Atticus Ross. Even though I already wasn't using my own game engine and I was getting some pointers from Booker, I was still of the mindset that I had to do most of the work on my own. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I finally got over myself and I decided to bring on my best friend, Jason. I've known Jason since high school and he's always had my back on anything tech related. He taught me so much about programming and to this day, he's one of the smartest people I know. So now with Jason on board, he can actually take a majority of the programming work away from me, and now I can focus on the art, sound, music, and marketing, which is still a lot of work. I've already worked with Jason for a few weeks, but I can already see the benefit of collaboration, and I don't think anyone should ever shy away from it. So again, thank you, Booker and Jason.
Why are we still here?
So going back to the big question, why am I working on this game after all of these ups and downs? Well, I would never be the game developer I am today if it wasn't for this game, and I'm still not done with it. There's still a lot for me to learn about finishing a game of this scale and releasing it on Steam, but I know if I can get through all of that, it will only help me make the next game better. As James Clear put it, the imperfect project you actually complete is worth more than the perfect project you never finish. And in addition to all of that, I actually kind of believe in this game. No, it's not going to be an Animal Well or Tetris, but I think it's a very fun little arcade game, and I'm not alone in thinking that. So, with that being said, I really want to return to talking about this game on YouTube with all of you. I also want to talk about my recent endeavors in music production. There's lots to share and so little time, so I'm going to try to release a video once or twice per month. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. I hope one of you watching learned something from my experience. I also hope that you subscribe to the channel to follow Jason and I on this journey to finishing this game and releasing it on Steam. With that, see you next time.